Good evening and welcome to Chester County's virtual town tours and village walks. My name is Karen Marshall and I'm Chester County's Heritage Preservation Coordinator. I'm so excited to say hello again to our many loyal town tour participants who are coming back for another summer, and to welcome everyone who's joining us for the first time. Even though we're not all together, Nancy Shields is still here making sure the program runs well. Nancy, would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone. I am thrilled to see so many attendees joining us for our third week of town tours and village walks. I hope you all get to enjoy Hibernia Park in person soon. You will see from the presentation that Hibernia Park has so many amenities to enjoy. Thank you for taking this virtual journey with us. Enjoy Hibernia Mansion.
Thanks, Nancy. It's been my pleasure to coordinate this program now in its 26th year for the past 14 summers. The program was originally conceived by my predecessor, Jane Ellis Davidson, as a way to encourage the network of the county's historical commissions and societies to showcase local history. Each summer on Thursday evening, free walking tours of Chester County's many historic sites and districts were presented by these organizations. As we all know, these are not normal times. This summer, through a special partnership with the Chester County Historic Preservation Network and 6 adventuresome historic sites shown on this flyer, we are all excited to present the 26th annual program in a virtual format. Chester County is a very special place. An original Pennsylvania county, it was founded in 1682 by William Penn and has a long and rich heritage that literally embodies the span of this country's development and history. Our well-preserved cultural landscape has many stories to tell. Tonight, we will be touring in one of Chester County's 6 parks, Hibernia County Park, as we explore our theme of art, architecture, and personal expression. The map you see is the walking tour of the park's extensive historic landscape and the main resources of the National Register Historic District. Hibernia Mansion, the center of the district, is our subject tonight. During the 1700s and 1800s, the iron industry in Pennsylvania was organized largely on plantations. Most ranged in size from several hundred to several thousand acres of land. Chester County had the earliest history of iron production in the state. The mansion housed the homes of the workers, the furnace and forge or forges, the charcoal barn, the office, the store, the grist mill, the sawmill, the blacksmith shop, the large outside bake ovens, the barns, the grain fields, and the orchards were all part of a bustling, almost self-sufficient community. Vast forests were necessary for the thousands of cords of wood consumed annually in the form of charcoal by each furnace. Much of today's park formed the Hibernia Iron Works. But iron is not the only story told here. There are literally hundreds of stories nestled among the silent trees and sparkling brooks. We hope you will enjoy the ones our guide has selected for tonight. Kathleen Hood will introduce you to the program now. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight's program, Hibernia Mansion, which is being recorded, is the third in our 6-part virtual town tours and village walks series. This evening, our lineup includes a video-based presentation by a park ranger from Hibernia Park. And following the video, we encourage you to stay on for a Q&A with our panelists and a very special closing. We invite you to submit questions by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and then typing in your question. We will answer as many questions as time permits. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you our lead panelist, Tom Simic, who became interested in Hibernia Park when he was doing research on his own 1820s farm. During this research, Tom uncovered the names of several iron masters, including Charles Brooke, the most prosperous iron master at Hibernia, who had at one time owned the farm, the farmhouse, and a former sawmill on Tom's property. It was this discovery that led Tom to Hibernia Park, where he has been involved for 24 years and has served as a county park ranger for the past 15 years. It is our honor to welcome Hibernia Park Ranger Tom Semick.
I thank you for selecting Hibernia County Park and Mansion for your town and village tour. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to focus on our site. What started out as a fur trading site grew into an iron master's plantation and a self-sufficient community. As things changed, the property became a gentleman's estate and later a county park. The following is only a brief introduction. I encourage you to come out and visit and explore. I'm Tom Simic. Welcome to Hibernia County Park and Hibernia Mansion. We are a 1,200-acre park located above Coatesville and Downeytown, just off of Route 82. What I'd like to talk about is the structure of the mansion and then some of the families that lived here. The original structure is on the left here. Just backed up. It was a log cabin. This was built during the French and Indian War, when there was turmoil between the English and the French over the fur trade in this area. Eventually, a Quaker weaver built this section, which was a story and a half. And then it was found that iron ore was located on the property. And the most prosperous iron master, Charles Brooke, added this center section. Two rooms on the first floor, 2 rooms on the second floor, and 2 rooms on the third floor. Then the technology changed, and this became a weekend getaway for a wealthy Philadelphia real estate attorney. To escape the heat and oppression from Philadelphia, he had a suite in the Bellevue Stratford. He made some changes. He added these 2 turrets on either side. There are 2 dormers up above, and he enclosed it into one big dormer, and the original dormers are still there. And at the request of his wife, in 1903, he added a ballroom. What he also did was, when he took over the property, Charles Brooke had a porch here. He took that off, and he didn't physically move the house, but he broke through a window and bumped out the front here and added 2 different doors. And the whole purpose was, when you came up the one entrance, the Lion's Head entrance, this looked like an English-style manor house. Okay, we moved to the back side of the house, and we're going to be entering through the servants' entrance. The reason we do that is because that takes us to the oldest existing part of the mansion, and then we can begin with our tours. Under this first V, there is the foundation and some boards of the original log cabin. When Charles Brooke added the section, you can see this is the center section that he added, and then that is the ballroom that Colonel Swain added. What's interesting are these 2 dormers. I pointed out the large dormer in the front. This is what is underneath the large dormer. They are still there. So we've entered the servants' entrance, and this is the stairway that leads up to the second floor of the servants' quarters. Keep this in mind, I'll talk about it in a couple of places. So we're going into the dining room. So this is the dining room, the oldest original section. This was built by the Quaker weaver in 1769. In back of this door is where the log cabin, the foundation and some of the logs. This is also another entrance for the servants, so they can come in here and serve. When the weaver owned the property, he had sheep on the front lawn, and we know that there was a shop and a workshop out by the road. My wife is always interested in this lithograph. If you look at it, look what's going on. The cherubs are leading the animals to slaughter. Colonel Swain died in 1924, and at probate, they took photographs of every room, every building, every structure on the property, and then the inside of the properties. We do have that original album, and I copied this, and this is this room the way it was in 1924, and it's exactly the same. This is the library, and it's set up to reflect the Iron Masters. We had a number of Iron Masters, the first one being Samuel Downing. Charles Brooks was the most prosperous, and this is his picture. He died in 1866. He had 3 sons, but none of them were interested in continuing with the iron plantation. So they leased the property to Horace Beale, and this is a picture of Horace Beale and his young son. And there is a story underneath with 2 Indian head pennies, and the story goes that young Horace was real adventurous. He went around the property, picked up the pig iron that he found along the road, and sold them back to his father for 2 cents. Charles Brooke and his family didn't want to sell, so Horace Beale moved everything to Parksburg. If you came out during Charles Brooks' time, this would have been the front door, and on the opposite end was the back door. You would walk through the front door, go into a large porch with big pillars. When Colonel Swain took over in 1894, he tore down the front porch, and he broke through the window and made a new entrance. He bumped out 2 feet, and this is where we began the tour. I coordinate the summer tour guides, and I had a person who wanted to be trained, and this was about 10 years ago, and she kept calling me, "My uncle wants to meet with you." And I said, okay. It took like 5 phone calls, but he wouldn't meet me in the mansion, he wouldn't meet me in the office, he would only meet me in the parking lot. There had been a time period for about 20 years where the mansion was vacant. There was a caretaker, a lot of vandalism had taken place. The gentleman who was trying to contact me as a teenager, he and another boy broke in and stole that painting. 40 years later, he returned her saying it's time for her to go home. We really had no idea what they looked like, the paintings. We found that there were 3 of them, but we didn't know what they looked like. So he returned them, and we have an idea. But what was strange is 6 months after he returned this painting, he passed away. And I don't know if his family would have known that that was something from this mansion. This is a sewing room. When we were outside, I pointed out the turrets. This is one of the turrets. This is Colonel Swain's bedroom. It's very fashionable for a husband and wife to have separate chambers, but they would meet with their household staff. All this furniture breaks down and can be carried down the stairs. We are above the library, and when we entered through the door in this corner, and this section here is the servants' quarters. What's interesting is that different owners added different sections. This door over here leads to the second floor, the servants' quarters, plus it goes down the stairs. When I first came in, I talked about the stairway on my left. The servants could come and service the second floor, the third floor, and when they were done, literally disappeared back into the woodwork. The bathing facilities, you see the bowls, the water bowls over here, and your toileting facilities were like in the corner. This is Colonel Swain's fox hunting jacket. He made some 29 trips back and forth to England, and he would wear this in his hunting outfit. He was real taken by English society. He did do hunting on the property, but it wasn't as formal as this. This is a crazy quilt. Dates back to 1820. And if you look at this, turn to the other side, you'll see the way it was heated. This was the source of heat. The Colonel and Charles Brooke used oil lamps and candles. If you look on either side, there are two large walk-in closets. You didn't walk in too far. But remember, at that time, you didn't have an awful lot of clothes. Plus, you could give your jackets or shirts to your servants and say, freshen it up, I want to wear it again tomorrow. The gentlemen had an advantage. They didn't have to change their shirts. They could change their collars and cuffs. But listen to this. I wouldn't want to be wearing this for very long. We have left the Colonel's bedroom. We're out in the hallway. Look at the size of this windowsill. This is above the doorway where the Colonel bumped out the door to make this look like an English-style manor house. I'll tell you some things about the Colonel and his wife. His wife was English. She was an English stage actress. He met her on one of his 29 trips back and forth to England. They were married in New York City in 1900. He brought her out here. There were no, well, at the time of their marriage, 1900, he was in his 60s and she was in her 20s. The marriage lasted about 7 years. She went back to England, but she did come back to visit during World War I. She was a Red Cross nurse. A lot of the people didn't recognize her because when she was mistress of the property, she was a redhead. When she came back, she was a blonde. No children. The property went to a cousin. The cousin had 5 other houses, the main one being in Rhode Island, along the coast with the Vanderbilts and the Astors. Eventually, this became a headache. It became known as the August House. They only came out here in August. Eventually, Mrs. Madison wanted to sell. Unfortunately, at that time, the county commissioners wanted to establish another park. So in 1963, they came to an agreement. 850 acres, the mansion, 15 outbuildings, the big barn. They came to an agreement, $130,000. The furniture, which was antique at that time, was a separate deal. Everything was sold for $1,000. So now we become a park, you want an inventory and appraisal of everything. So in '63, that chest, blanket chest, was worth $5,000. So it was a good deal. This is Dolly's bedroom. Dorothy Clifford All this furniture breaks down and can be carried down the stairs again. Remember, Dolly wanted a Christmas Eve ball, so the Colonel built her a ballroom. As a result, the roof line cuts into her windows. So I guess he said, that's the trade-off. If you want the ballroom, you lose your windows. This is Dolly's changing room, but it also could serve as a day bed and also another room for guests. This is the turret on the other side. Different owners added different sections. If you look, you're walking through a window to go into the bathroom. The Colonel had 3 bathrooms in the mansion. Electricity didn't come out to this part of Chester County until the 1930s, but through a cistern at the barn and pipes leading down to the mansion, he serviced the mansion, the bathrooms, and the kitchen. This is the stairway going up to the 3rd floor. If you came to visit during Charles Brooks' time, you may come, because of the distance, you'd stay a couple days, couple weeks, couple months. The women and children would stay up on the 3rd floor. The men and boys would go to local taverns. So it probably worked out well for everyone. This is Rebecca Lukens. She was a favorite of her father's. She traveled with him to the different ironmaster plantations. She was well educated. Her father had promised that when he passed away, the iron industry would go to her and her husband. It was never put in writing. Mother contested it until the day she died. What's unfortunate is the year that her father died, her husband died, one of her children died, and she was pregnant with another child. As a result, her diary says she dove into her work. And it was really unusual for a woman to be head of a large industry. She wanted to borrow money and pig iron. She went to all the iron masters, and nobody would help her. Women were not supposed to be operating industries. But she came here and met with Charles Brooks, and he loaned her both money and pig iron. And she did pay him back. These are receipts from the Bank of Chester County. There are 2 dated 1850 in the amount of $500. $500 in 1850 was a lot of money. Okay, we're now in the parlor. This is where women would have teas, recite poetry, read from books, read letters. The men would be next door in the library, smoking their cigars and drinking cognac. Mrs. Madison, the cousin, her husband was stationed in the Orient. He was an admiral in the Navy. He had a Chinese export collection. This isn't all the original, but what's interesting is this attaché. One of the members of the Friends of Hibernia found this in the basement. There's no nuts, screws, or bolts holding it together. It's ebonized walnut. I keep teasing him because we have extra pieces, but there could have been another one. The ballroom was specially built. We know that the Colonel had to pay quite a bit for it because he had to sell some of his property to pay for the construction and the party. Mrs. Madison, her workers used this ballroom for storage, and they changed the oil to their lawnmower in the ballroom, used only once. Okay, this is basically the end of your tour. Come out and visit us. During the summer, we're open from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and in August we have the Fiddler's Picnic. October, A Murder Mystery, which is a comedy, and at Christmas time, the first weekend in December, the mansion is decorated by garden clubs, and all the docents are in costume. So come join us then. come out here because there's an awful lot of activity that can take place. Walking trails, fishing along the Brandywine, playgrounds. You can walk through the ruins. There's booklets available in the main office. So looking forward to seeing you again. Come on out.
Invite Tom Simic back for a Q&A session right now. And Tom, we have our first question. Do you have any details about the painting that was returned in terms of the artist, the period, the value, and so forth?
No, there is a signature, but it's so smeared, it's hard to read. I tried everything. I could not find out who had done it.
And in reference to that, a follow-up question, Tom, how did you go about researching Hibernia and who was involved with that research?
Well, I think a number of things that took place. A lot of people involved in the park are neighbors, or they have relatives who have worked at the mansion, either in the past or in the future. At one time, we found that there were 15 boxes in the basement and had historic documents. Nothing was organized. So we set up a history committee that's been working 20 years. We've refined it a number of times. Things keep coming back to us, and it's an ongoing process. The Friends of Hibernia, they court a number of activities, and their activities, there's a small fee. The largest is maybe $5, but that allowed us to buy lights for the outside, new kitchen for our tea parties, bathroom and the servants' entrance, flooring. We did the Heritage Annex, which was a real mess, and it demonstrates what is in the mansion and around the mansion. Upholsteries have been redone. The dining room floor was just done, and it looks tremendous. Old barn wood. There's window treatments. There's summer tours, and that generates funding. We do get some gifts. We were able to, through a grant by one of the local artists, put some money towards reproducing the rugs that are on the first and second floor. The rangers provide directions, support, answer questions, and the maintenance people. If you live in an old house, you know there's always something to do. So they've been great. They've helped maintain the inside and the outside. I think it's a dedication to people who are interested in history, possibly searching their relatives. People enjoy the walking trails, the nature hikes, the fishing. It just draws people, and we coordinate them.
Tom, our second question is, was it named Hibernia from the very beginning? And was the owner from Ireland?
No, but it is. One time it said it was a Greek for Ireland, but we don't know for sure. Colonel Swain called it fortunate. So the name keeps going back and forth, but Hibernia has really stuck. And all of our documentation, all of the maps talk about Hibernia Ironworks.
The next question is, this viewer is wondering if you have a history of any slaves that may have worked on this property. She heard you talk about servants, but were there actual slaves?
Charles Brooke did have one black slave. We don't have any documents reflecting who he was, but in terms of the tax records, there was a listing. He also had, and that was carried on, indentured servants, some from Ireland. That's the one that I can recall right now.
Someone is going back to the painting that was returned, and they said that you had mentioned 3 paintings, but only 1 was returned. Do you have any idea about the other 2?
I was fortunate to meet like a great-great-granddaughter who, as a child, talked about, and I'm sure laughed about, these 3 nymph paintings that hung in the stairway. We had no idea what they looked like, but we knew that there were 3. And it wasn't until that one came back that we had a general idea.
That was quite a find. What a beautiful thing to return that painting to Hibernia. Someone is questioning what pig iron might be.
Okay. When iron ore was found on the property, that iron ore was crushed up and added with lime into a furnace with bellows. And the bellows would reheat and intensify the heat. And the rock would actually turn to a liquid and flow into a center trough with wings coming out. And they said that it looked like a mother sow, a mother pig, nursing her piglets. And that's how we got the name pig iron.
Are you aware of any book that's been published on the mansion in particular, Tom?
No, but there is a document by one of our former superintendents that's probably available at the Chester County Historical Society. That is it.
Someone is asking how large the ballroom might be.
I want to say it's like 20 feet by 20 feet and 19 feet tall.
And someone is making the comment that the Hibernia Park website states there were forges, furnaces, and mills. Are these structures on the parkland today? Any extant structures, any archaeological sites?
All of those structures basically at this point are in ruins. We do have like 4 of the original tenant houses meaning homes that were rented out to people who are working on the property. And when somebody rented a house, that didn't mean that one family lived there. You could have many boarders. Trying to think of what else. There's a lot of ruins. I guess the best thing is the tenant houses, the mansion, and then the original barn that dates back to 1840.
And focusing in on the furniture that we saw during the video, Tom, do we know who originally owned that furniture?
I would say probably 80% was Franklin Swain. We do have some plates, saucers, and some silverware by Charles Brooke, left by Charles Brooke, or donated by descendants of his family. But majority, and we're fortunate to have that, like 85% of Colonel Swain's property.
With 1,200 acres, what is available to help people navigate the property?
Well, in the park office, there's a map that was briefly shown, and I know it was hard to see, but it marks the different trails, the different historic sites. And there's also a walking tour booklet. Now in the staff, or in the park office, you'll meet the staff. There's also the park rangers and the maintenance people who would be glad to take you around. The roads are well marked with the locations of what's at the end of the road. There's designated parking areas at each site. We do have an interactive display outside the mansion, and that'll coordinate some of the buildings that you'll see. There's also a Chester County website that gives information, plus the Friends of Hibernia, their website.
Excellent. And Tom, are there any hour restrictions right now on visiting the park?
No, I mean, we're open all the time. Summer and winter, we're open. We're open from sunrise to sunset, but people do come in after that time. They don't have the support in case there's an emergency. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of iffy. But people are welcome anytime. Don't forget you have the fishing, the boating on the lake. A lot of ongoing activities. Camping over the weekend.
I have a question here, Tom, about Rebecca Lukens. You mentioned her borrowing iron ore and money from Charles Brooke, and they're wondering if she was any relation to the family who owned Luken Steel in Coatesville.
Definitely. Her father operated Luken Steel in Coatesville. Like I said, she was well educated. They were sent to Wilmington. She was sent to Wilmington, and she was a favorite of her father's. So she traveled from Iron Master's plantation to Iron Master's plantation. And by this time, she learned the process. And when her father died, she was able to step in. But remember, it was unusual for a woman to occupy any kind of position running a business.
Here's a question. How many ruins, Tom, went underwater when the dam was built?
I would say 3. 2 I know were farmhouses. And we do have documentation and photographs. When they were demolishing it, they actually set fire to it. And we have pictures of those fires. And still today, you can walk around the property and you can see the roads, the macadam roads that go into the lake where the houses used to be.
Someone is going back to the furniture and wondering if Colonel Swain's furniture was all American made.
Yes, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. And someone is also talking about a book at Chester County Historical Society that's called Colonel Swain's Hibernia by Wayne Morris, and pictures by Jean Diorio. Are you familiar with
by Gene DiOrio are great. There are 2 booklets out when the park first started, and that was in '63. But we're actually trying to collect some of those booklets because there's a lot of misinformation in those booklets. And we were able to clarify that over all these years.
And Tom, our final question relates to some of the activities that you've spoken of that people can enjoy when they go to Hibernia. But what are the many attractions that people can take advantage of when they visit?
Well, you have the lake, Hibernia. Well, let me just look for 1 minute. You can do fishing at the Brandywine Creek. There's Chambers Lake. There's a children's pond that only allows kids under 10 years old. Fishing poles you can borrow from the park. Just go to the main office. And there is a cash bait box outside. There's boating at Chambers Lake. You can't use gas motors, but you can use electric motors and, of course, paddles. There's a number of playgrounds. There's picnic areas with tables and fire pits. There's pavilions, and the pavilions rent from like $25 to $90. There's camping on the weekends for $15. You can't beat that. Rough camping. And then in the summer, we have the mansion tours, the tours of the ruins, the tours of the servants' quarters. There's restroom facilities. There's special tours. If you call and say you would like to visit one of these sites, the mansion, the servants' quarters, that can be arranged. We do a number of tea parties during the year. And again, as was mentioned in the DVD, tea parties, murder mystery, candlelight tours, old fiddler's picnic, and more. Things are always being added.
Tom, thanks so much for answering our questions tonight, and we encourage all of you to visit Hibernia Park with the list of attractions. It's going to be a great visit whenever you're there. And with that, we hope you enjoyed this evening's program and look forward to seeing you tune in to future webinars in our series. We also invite you to a brand new virtual series that will launch in September by the Chester County Historic Preservation Network. Our special thanks to the Chester County Planning Commission, Tom Semick, and the staff of Hibernia, CCHPN, our planning and production teams, and all of you, our viewers, for making these programs possible. Tonight's presentation will be uploaded onto YouTube for later viewing. And we close with a very special video entitled Lives Rooted in Places, which has been produced by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Stay healthy, stay safe, and have a sensational summer.
Our stories, our memories, our lives are rooted in places. Some are grand, the stuff of legends. Some are personal, known only to you. Historic places are scattered across our country, in our greatest cities, nestled among corner markets and clothing stores, or out in the fields, on mountains, at the end of dirt roads. Some have been meticulously cared for. Others have been forgotten by all but a few, who are bringing them back to life and help the rest of us to remember. All of these places shape the story of who we are, where we come from, where we're going. They remind us of what we've gone through, honoring our proudest moments and acknowledging the wounds we are still working to heal. Old places inspire us and help us to imagine what comes next. Because these places belong to all of us. We must save them for ourselves, each other, and our future together.